Okay, here we are with Emanuel Comino AM. Okay, born in 1933, 90 years old and 6 months from what you tell me, with parents Ioannis, Panayiotis and Sophia. You were born in Rockhampton. Now, your family, Emanuel, are pioneers from Kythera, from the island of Kythera, from the village of
Panayiotis and Rimona, my mum.
Right. The pioneers, because your dad came out in 1911.
He was 11 years old, and my mum, a few years later, she was very young. I think about, I'm not 100% sure, because she died very young. I don't remember my mother.
But there's a bit of a story about your dad arriving in Australia and having no one waiting for him.
That's right. He landed in Sydney, stepped off the big ship, and there was no one there to pick him up. So he started to walk the streets of Sydney until he got tired of walking, and he sat into the suitcase and started to cry, like any other 11-year-old would have done. So there he was, 11 years old, could not speak a word of English, no money in his pocket, no security, and all lost in a foreign land, thousands and thousands of miles away from home, until a policeman found him, crying. And I suppose the policeman asked him, "Why are you crying?" All my father could say was, "Greek, Greek, Greek." So the good policeman, upon hearing Greek, he took him by the hand down to Secular Quay. There was a fellow Greek there, had a fish shop, and it took him months and months and months to find out the destination of that little 11-year-old boy, which was Rockhampton.
Rockhampton?
Yeah.
Wow.
His mother's brother was up there, another Comino.
Okay.
He had up a Comino's Cafe in William Street, Rockhampton.
So, and your parents married and they settled in Rockhampton too?
Yep, yeah.
And you're born in Rockhampton?
That's right, Rockhampton, Central Queensland. I'm proud of it too.
Right. Now, but the thing is, your family, tragedy strikes your family.
Yeah.
In the 30s,
yes.
And when Mum becomes ill.
Sadly, my mother got very ill. TB, they said no cure for it. And she passed away in March 1937, before my 4th birthday. And by the end of 1938, Dad decided to go back to Greece for a short holiday. He hadn't been back to Greece since when he came out.
I was reading Emanuel. I was reading her last letter to your dad. You know, I mean, she's ill. She's passing, and what's her one wish? Her one wish is for the children to always be clean when they go to school, with clean clothes.
I can't read the letter, but they're crying.
Yeah. Okay. So you return to Kythera.
I didn't return. My father returned, and we went over.
Right. Yeah.
And we were stuck there with the Second World War.
So that's right. So in other words, the timing is impeccable, because you arrive, I think, in 1938 as a family.
1938,
with your brother also.
Yeah, year-old brother Peter. But unfortunately, we were ready to come back 3 times, I believe. My father sort of postponed a couple of times, and the 3rd time was too late. We couldn't come back. Everything was closed. But we were lucky enough to get out of Athens and go to Kythera. At least there on the island, we had a little bit of survival. We had a family home was only a small home with my father's stepmother and 2 kids, and that's us 3 in one room.
Wow.
So we were moving around, especially when the Germans came and the Italians and the adults. We were number 1 on the list to be taken away or shot or whatever, because we weren't classed as Greeks, we weren't classed as Australians, we were classed as British subjects. And any British subjects during the Second World War in Europe, let alone in Greece, their lives were in danger. So my father separated us in Kythera, all over the place. I didn't know where my father and my brother was for many, many months.
Really?
Yeah, and my brother the same. My father knew where we were, but he split us up just in case we get caught, not all to get caught at the same time. And I remember being very, very, very hungry many times, and very cold in the winter. My fingers and my feet were bleeding from chilblains, from the cold, and maybe that's why I've got arthritis now. I don't know, but the horrible. Well, that was war. Unfortunately, many other people went through the same problem. You know, they suffer. Other people in Athens were dying in the streets. If we would have stayed in Athens, we would have died for sure from hunger.
Do you remember as a child the Germans passing where you were, or the Italians passing, or?
I've seen it, but I didn't know where we were. We stayed out of the way. That's all. Yeah, I was up on the mountain for I don't know how long time. 2 houses up there. You couldn't see the place from anywhere except from the air, right? And another thing I remember, I would have been about 1940, I would have been about 8 years old. I remember the Stukas, or the German aeroplanes, going over Kythera for the Battle of Crete.
Oh, wow.
And coming back from the other way. And I remember old people saying, our Crete is burning, Crete must get there. Our Crete is burning, our Crete, and they were crying, old people, they were crying. And it was like lightning going continuously. It was very sad. I remember that very, very well. And from that moment, I don't know why it hit me. I wanted to be up there in the planes flying those damn things, and that's how I got into the Air Force years later. Yeah,
that's the connection.
Yeah, and I wanted to fly. I just want to be a pilot and nothing else. Just pilot. Yeah.
Do you remember going to school on Kythera?
Different schools from place to place, wherever we can find, but not very much. The first year or two, not so bad, but after that there was nothing really. And we ended up going to the high school. I don't know how the hell I got to the high school for 1 year. We did nothing actually. They just took us, I think. But what I do remember, while we were at the gymnasium, as I say, the high school, then at Kapsali at the waterfront, I remember the very first landing of the Allies in Greece was in Kapsali, Kythera. And I was standing on the beach. I can show you a photo in a minute. I was standing on the beach watching all the barges and the British and Greek warships coming into the harbour.
Wow.
And after a while, a British officer come out one of the barges there with his all regalia, all his medals and all the thing, yeah. And he handed me something blue, and I wouldn't take it. I don't know, for one reason, not to take from strangers, I can't remember. And he opens it up. It's a piece, and he gives it to me. It was chocolate. I said, "This is bloody beautiful." Yeah. But another thing, every day, just about, a German or two aeroplanes would come. They shot a couple of them down, and I was on the wharf and screaming out, "Varatetus, varatetus!" Keep shooting them. And the Greek sailor used to scream out to me, "Go and hide, everyone, people, crips on me," and I was screaming, "Varatetus, varatetus!" Keep shooting at them. And furthermore, I remember that the Greek sailor was saying, the famous Greek battleship, the Averov, the big one, he said, "Oh, Averov ακόμα τώρα." The Averov is still shooting. You could hardly see the German aeroplanes gone, but we were still shooting at them. That was memories.
So, those memories, how do you remember them? Are they nostalgic? Do you see them as adventurous as a child? Because there's a lot of innocence. You don't really understand what's really going on.
When you're young like that, you don't know good from bad, you don't understand. You're growing up with it, you think it's part of the life in a way, really, thinking. All I remember was we were told to keep away from the Germans and the Italians and from the adapters. They were the worst. They were after us.
So they came through too, Kythera? They came through Kythera also?
Yeah, they had them there, yeah. They were harmless as far as I'm concerned, but they were just louds more or less, you know. At the beginning they come out for the right thing to be the liberators, you know, adapters, but they turned out to be over in Peloponnese and other parts of Greece. They got a bit wild. And
so tell me, the war finishes. Was it inevitable, Emanuel, was it inevitable for the family to return to Australia? Was it always inevitable? Like, you've spent how many years now as a family in
9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
9 years. The war's over.
Yeah.
You're reunited, as you know, with your brother and your father. But you know, you returned to Australia. Was it inevitable?
Of course. Well, my father had a shop here, and he had rented it out in Yeppoon. Yeah, and we were looking forward to it. As I said, as soon as the war finished, I didn't give a damn about schooling or anything. I was to go down to Kapsali to learn to swim, something like that. We were having a good time, waiting to get out and come back to Australia.
And do you remember the ship that you came back on? Was it a ship?
Oh yeah. It's all written down in there. I can't remember the name of it at the moment. Right. Asturias, I think, or something like that.
Now you returned to Rockhampton. Now, is it you know when you come back to Rockhampton after 9 years? Is it like a new beginning? You have to start all over again? Like, how is your English?
Let me tell you, when I went to Greece, I couldn't speak one single word of Greek, not one. When we come back to Australia, I couldn't speak one single word of English, not one, me and my brother.
Wow.
So we went to Rockhampton, and then they sent me to school in Gympie with some cousins of mine for about 5-6 months. Now, the teacher could not speak a single word of Greek, and I couldn't speak a single word of English. How much can you learn about 5-6 months from a teacher that you couldn't communicate. Except to say, my name is Emanuel John Comino. I live at 15 Smith Street. Sorry, I can't speak English. Or can you help me? This type of thing to get by. But to my good, after that, went back to Rockhampton working in cafes and all that. And my father bought another cafe in a country town 50 miles west of Rockhampton called Wildwood. Nobody ever heard of it. There was no Greeks there. We were the only family. And 4 years, as I said later, in 1952, I was called up to serve in the Royal Australian Air Force.
Can I ask you, when you're living in rural Queensland and being the only Greek family, in a country town, how do you feel? Like, do you feel alien? Because even though you were born in Australia, you were born in Rockhampton, but the fact that you've spent 9 years overseas, do you feel like
a stranger?
A stranger?
In a way, I felt that I was an outcast, because those days we were called different names, which I don't call them today. The people, they weren't very nice. The Aussies, the Australians of those days, they were naive. I can't blame the people. They didn't know any better. It was part of Australia growing up. So we didn't care, just in one ear, out of the other, no matter. And they were nice people. They just got customers calling you Dagos, for example, and things like that.
And what was life like working in a cafe? What was your dad's cafe called?
Comino's Cafe.
Comino's Cafe.
As a matter of fact, in those days, from Brisbane to Cairns, all the way in the big towns, you will find just about in every town Comino's Cafe was well known. The name Comino throughout Queensland.
Did you like working in a cafe?
Well, I had no other choice. I didn't know anything else. It was there where I learnt my English, in the cafes, and to cook and to work. That's all it was. And we were working 7 days a week. Don't forget, from morning to night.
Wow.
But I became I used to play the violin and the clarinet a lot. I love music. And I was a very, very good dancer. I competed in competitions, and I was a very good ballroom dancer and jitterbugging, jiving. I did the lot.
So
I just love dancing.
You love dancing?
And music. I love music and dancing, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in 1952, you said you were called up.
In 1952,
yes,
I was called up to serve in the Royal Australian Air Force for 6 months in Townsville. We were trained there as a military photographer. I wanted to be a pilot, but I found out I was colourblind and I could never be a pilot. And I wanted to throw me in the kitchen. I said, no, why? I want to be up there. I want to be up in the plains. I put up a big fight. And I said, what can you do? I'll do anything you like, but I'll be up in the plains. I can take photos. I said, photos, can you take photos? Yeah, I'll take photos. So I became a very good photographer. As a matter of fact, one of the best I had. Yeah, because
classic story, Emanuel. Classic story.
Yeah.
So you're all like an Air Force photographer up in the plains.
Yeah.
Now, you were 1952 is around the time of the Korean War.
That's correct, yeah. We were called up to go over. They said we were going over after we were trained, then we were called off. Then 4 years later, I get another call to go to another war in Suez in 1956.
But by that time, you had already met...
Yeah, I had met my future wife, but I weren't married. We were getting married in January 57.
Matina.
And this came up in about September, October 56. And I said to Matina, we better postpone the wedding because sometimes the planes come crashing down. And she said, no, we're going ahead with the wedding. And 2 weeks before the wedding, I get a letter, we're not going over. The war didn't last long in Suez, as you know. The British went there, sunk a few ships in the canal, and that was all over.
Can I ask, Matina, of course, is also Kytherian, of Kytherian background.
Yes.
Was it always going to be a Kytherian girl to marry?
I don't know, it just happened like that. To be honest with you, I remember telling my father years ago, when we were in Rockhampton, I'll marry the girl I love. I don't know what colour she is, what nationality she is. And he says, "Mima favorisa, man, what is the piscinosu?" In other words, don't scare me what you're going to do, blame yourself. And it just happened that I met Matina. I had no intention of getting married, but we just met and just clicked.
Wow.
She was 18 and I was 23.
And where did you get married?
In Sydney.
In Sydney?
Sydney, yeah.
Not up in Queensland?
No, in Sydney. And I came down, ever since I lived in Sydney.
Wow.
From January 57.
Okay. And you and Matina, where did you establish yourselves? Where did you live?
Well, first at the beginning we stayed with my mother-in-law. She was a widow, and then we bought a milk bar out in Guilford, suburb of Guilford, a milk bar.
A milk bar in Guilford.
7 days and 7 nights. That's where my son John and Greg were born as little kids.
Oh, wow.
And then about the middle of about 1962, I think 161, 62, 63, I started a little bit with insurances. And eventually I sold the shop at the end of 1964, I think it was 65, and I went full-time into the insurance industry.
So what was it like, coming from, let's say, country Queensland to the big city with the big lights of Sydney?
Big smoke, big difference, especially when you're in a little country town now. When I say little country town, I mean, during the day, if you get out with a machine gun, you wouldn't knock a fly down. The farmers used to come in Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays, bring their milk in, because we had one of the biggest butter factories in Rockhampton. Now, unfortunately, it's a museum. But those days, they were very, very busy. All the farmers used to come in on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays. You couldn't move in the town. And there was only cafe there. They had a general store,
a pub?
Two pubs, two pubs, yeah, small but two. A butcher shop, a baker, instead of general business one, and that's about in a hardware shop, something like that. There were only half a dozen shops.
Now, so you and Matina, okay, so you're both, Kytherian of Greek background. How do you sort of give the Greek culture, the Kytherian culture, to your kids, to your sons? Do you send them to Greek school? Do they go Greek dancing? Do you speak Greek at home? How do you give that Greek tradition to your kids?
It's not easy these days here. I don't know why it's not easy, but it's just not easy. It's up to the parents.
But how did you do it with Matina?
Well, I spoke to the kids in Greek, but Matina's natural language is English, and that's what makes it difficult, because mum spends more time with the kids than dad, as you know. So we try to put them into Greek school, which we did for a small stage, and they can understand Greek, they can speak a little bit of Greek, but they can't actually read and write Greek, which I'm very sad, because I believe the Hellenic language, I don't like calling it Greek, it's a Hellenic language, is a beautiful language. It's if you take the Hellenic language out of the English language, you've got no English, none at all. So you probably know. And I studied by myself. No one taught me. I just self-taught anything I know. And I was so proud of the richness of the Hellenic language. It's so rich.
And can I ask, did you and Matina and the boys, did you go to Greek dances?
Oh yes. The boys, I taught them Greek dancing from very, very young. They're very good dancers, excellent dancers, yeah.
But did you go to you're an active member of a HEPA, you're the Kytherian, at the time it was the Kytherian Brotherhood.
Yeah, Kytherian Brotherhood, a HEPA, the whole lot everywhere, I was involved with all this association very much. And in the church committees, of course, because I served 6 years secretary and 12 years president here in Cogra. And during my presidency, we built a church, the cultural center next door, and the Eurocomio, the age, during my presidency.
So tell me, what draws you in? Is it that sense of duty to the community, to become active within, is it, do you feel as if you have to serve the community?
It's not that it just happens. If you get involved in one, all of a sudden you're getting involved in so many things, you don't even know you're involved. It just happens like that. And I remember people saying from time to time, if you want to get a job done, get a person who's very busy. And it's so true. You're very busy, then I say something to you and you end up doing it because you're used to doing things, So I'm very proud of what I've done in the community. I serve to the best of my ability.
So, and the thing is, the biggest survey, if we could call it within vertical survey, is this return of the Parthenon Marbles.
Oh, that's very, very passionate to me.
Okay,
that's something extra special.
Because you start doing talks about this, I think, in the early...
You know how I started?
How?
On our first trip to Europe, after married with Matina in 1976, we didn't go to Greece, we flew to Rome and got a Europass and traveling all over Europe because Matina wanted to see the countryside. From the aeroplane you can't see much, right? And every country we went to the museums. And every museum you went to, what do you see? Greek antiquities. When we got to Paris, we went to the Louvre, the famous museum in Paris, the Louvre. And the first thing the guide said to us was, English speaking here, French speaking there, German speaking there. Of course we weren't with the English speaking people, we was in a big group. And he said, I'm going to take you now to the most famous part of the museum, the Greek section. When I heard that, after seeing all the other museums with Greek antiquities, I said to myself, Greek here too? I didn't know, I had no idea. So as we're going through one thing and another, all of a sudden we come across a beautiful statue of Artemis. And I knew a little bit about Artemis because we had just formed a chapter in a HAPA called Chapter Artemis. And then in the next room, there she was, Goddess Aphrodite. And I remember during the Second World War in Greece, when I was a little kid, I was singing a song. Πιο πέρα από το καβομαλιά, πιο πάνω από την Κρήτη και στο τσιρίγο το όμορφο γεννήθηκε Αφροδίτη.
Oh, wow.
That on the island of Kythera, the goddess Aphrodite was born. So I said to the guide, she was a lady, I said, excuse me madam, did you say all this beautiful art came from Greece? She said, yes, it's all Greek from Greece. I said to her, I don't believe you. It's impossible for a small country like Greece to have so much beautiful antiquity. Tell us what it's all from, tell us the truth. Oh no, so it's all Greek from Greece. So I got so angry and I said to him, what are you doing here, you thieves? Set them back where they belong. She threw her arms up in the air, nothing to do with me, sir, and walked away. But this tall American was standing next to me. He puts his arm around my shoulder and says, you're right, man, you tell her, they've got no business being here, they should all be back in Greece. So from that moment, I said to myself, when I go back to Australia, I'm going to form a committee for the defense of all these antiquities to go back to Greece. I hadn't seen the Parthenon Marbles yet. From Paris, we flew to London. And my wife says to me, no more museums for you. If you put up another show in the British Museum like you did in the Louvre, you might end up in jail. So we didn't go that year.
Oh, you didn't go?
That year, no. We were ready to go. As we went, they said there was a bomb scare, and they said, that's it. I said, I'm not going in. But from there we flew to Athens, and the first thing I did, the first thing was to go up in the Acropolis and see the Parthenon. I got the shock of my life when I stood and I saw it for the first time. I got that amazing feeling. I don't know, everybody gets his own recollection of that magic moment when you see the Parthenon for the very, very first time. It hits you, it really does. And to my good fortune, my very first cousin, who was born in Rockhampton, but he was a professor and was teaching English in Athens, his Greek was better than any Greek, as far as that goes. And he told me a little bit about what Elgin had done, what people knew those days. They didn't know the real true story, okay? But that was enough to make me realize that they were stolen. They were things that shouldn't be taken away. So on the way down from the Parthenon, up in the Acropolis, there was a bookshop down there, and I bought 3 books. From Athens, we went to Kythera, and we stayed there about 4 or 5 weeks, a long time. I read through all those books. And by the time I came back to Australia, I think I knew more about the Parthenon and the so-called Elgar marbles at the time than anyone else. So I started giving talks, and everybody thought I was a nut. I wanted to get a committee going, and they said, "Oh, you're crazy?" Oh. But finally, after 5 years, giving talks here and then, the talks getting bigger and bigger, and people got to know, and they were asking me to give more talks. In HAPA's National Convention in 1981, it was in Adelaide that year, I moved the motion, you got the full motion somewhere up there, to have the Parthenon Marbles. There's the motion.
Wow.
That's the original motion. That's the first committee in the world. It was seconded by John Chrysopoulos. John Chrysopoulos, one of the very first Greek Australian judges, a very good friend of mine from South Australia, and was passed unanimously. And full authority was given to me to write letters, do anything I like, just give an annual report to the National Convention, to which I still do to this day, which I don't have to, but I do out of principle, to HAPA every year at my resort. And from there, it started, not only just giving lectures here in Sydney, around Australia and overseas. And then Madonna Mercuri came into the field. And when she wrote in, I think it was April 1992, there was an article in the Sydney Morning Herald. She was running down Lord Elgin as a barbarian thief, something like that, right? And how she would like to see an international movement, something to that effect. So I wrote to her straight away, and I sent her a copy of the motion. And by the end, before the end of 1982, she put me in touch with a very distinguished British committee that she formed in January 1983. So I wrote to them, and the first thing they asked me was financial support. And they were all British, no Greeks in it. There was one Greek lady called Eleni Kubert, but she was married to an Englishman, James Kubert, okay? And there was rumours here in Sydney that Melina Mercouri will be coming to Sydney or to Australia in early 1983. So I wrote to her and asked her if she can spare a little bit of a busy schedule to discuss the campaign. To which she replied that she would make every effort to come to Australia. And the 1st of March she wrote me the letter, I have the letter, and she says to me words exactly, Maya, please, she knew that I have contacted the British committee, we're communicating in correspondence. She said, Maya, please ask you to coordinate all your fine efforts with the British committee, to which I have done. From that day to today, we'll continue supporting the very distinguished British committee in London, because they are doing our work, and they're professors, they're wonderful people, beautiful people, wonderful people.
Emanuel, can I ask, how does Matina and the boys see all this?
Oh, if I didn't have the support of my wife and the boys, I wouldn't have been able to continue.
Wow.
She never ever once told me, all the boys, oh, stop it or give it away, like many other people still today, me koroidevun, you know, that means they're making fun out of me. And
no, they shouldn't, of course. But this is a lifelong struggle for you.
Yeah, I'm so proud about it because I can see light down the tunnel. When you have now the Hellenic Prime Minister, who was a British Prime Minister, start talking about that, and was a British Museum with the Hellenic Prime Minister, that's a big plus. So that means, in a way, my efforts, my work is finished. Now, what can I do now? Go tell the British Prime Minister to send the marbles back? Why don't you go to Hellenic Prime Minister telling him, right? But we still work in the background, enlightening the public generally, the importance of the Parthenon Marbles and why they should be returned. What does that mean? Look, let me put it this way to you, as I said it at the international conferences. The Parthenon Marbles do not belong to the British government, do not belong to the British Museum. They do not belong to World Heritage, the people are saying. They don't even belong to Greece. The Parthenon Marbles belong to themselves, and only to themselves. That is why it's so utmost important that they be all reunited in the new Acropolis Museum, which was specially designed and built for them, so people can go and view them and listen to what they are telling us. And do you know what they're telling us, Vasili? They're telling us about 2,500 years of Greek history. Greek history that is tortured, tormented, betrayed, but always glorious Greek history. That's what those stones, those marbles are telling us. And that is what's the utmost important, that we all reunited together so they can tell us the story. Unless they're all together, they can't tell us the true story.
Nicely put.
So that is why I strongly believe that one day all those marbles will return. Can I tell you something else what happened when I was in New Zealand about 15, 20 years ago maybe? I've been all around the world, as I said, and I formed another committee in New Zealand as well in 2000, May 2000. But this particular night I gave a lecture and I was asked quite a few questions, and one of these gentlemen said to me, "What are you doing tomorrow, Mr. Comino?" I said, "I'm flying back to Sydney." He said, "Oh, can you stay back one night? We've got a minister from the British government here and he's talking at the such a university and the business people. Can't you come and put the question to him?" I said to him, "I'm not invited, first of all." He said, "I'm the master of ceremonies tomorrow night. I'm inviting you to come. I heard your lecture. I came here to cane you, to build you up. But after what I heard you and what you show us, I feel ashamed to call myself a Britisher." I said, "Don't feel ashamed. It's not you to blame. You know, for one person that did it 200 years ago." So he asked me to go, and he said to sit back about 4 or 5 rows and not to be the first one to ask the question. And I said to him, "What am I going to ask the minister?" So we worked it out. So I went along. After he gave his presentation and after a couple of questions, or 3 or 4 or 5 questions, I put my hand up. You had to give your name. I said, "My name is Emanuel John Comino. I'm the founder and chairman of the International Organising Committee Australia for the Restitution of the Parthenon Marbles. Mr. Minister, can one be optimistic that the British government will return the Parthenon Marbles otherwise as the Elgin Marbles in the British Museum? And I said, yeah. He starts saying that Lord Elgin took them legally. If he hadn't taken them, they would deteriorate. They're very well looked after in the British Museum, and more people see them in the British Museum than ever in Greece, all this type of thing. I didn't say anything, I just sat there. And I had my HAPA jacket on as well, I stood out. So when it was all finished, I was standing about 15-20 feet away from him, waiting to speak to him, and he could see me. So when he got the chance, he came towards me. Now listen to what he said to me. And he gives me his hands and he says, "Thank you very much for not putting the question hard at me." So I turned around and I said to him, "My friend, I have a message for you, for the British government, for the British Museum, and for the British people. Thank you very much for looking after them to the best of your knowledge and ability. Let's forget whether you took them legally or illegally. Forget all about that. And let's forget the irreparable damage caused to the marbles while they've been ripped out and in the British Museum. Let's put all those things aside. But now please send them back where they rightfully belong." You know what he said to me? Hit me on the chest, says, "Between you and me, they will definitely go back. I don't know when, but they will definitely go back." Well, let me tell you, Vasili, they will definitely go back. Don't ask me when, but they will definitely go back.
Wow. Okay, let's change the subject. I want to go back to your first trip to Kythera. You know, with the family, when you said you went to Europe and then you came down with you know, went to Athens.
Hang on, the second trip to Kythera, you're talking about the first trip to Europe.
Okay, yes. How did you feel returning after all those years? Did you feel Kythera was home? Did you feel like you spent some difficult years during the occupation there and all that, but returning, you know, as an adult, you know, with your family, like, how did you feel coming back to Kythera?
It was nostalgic, there's no question about that, and brought back sad memories and happy memories too, I must admit, because as a kid you don't realise there's a war, what the war means or what the killing means or anything like that. You don't see it that way as you see it as another adult. Only that you're a bit of a frightened, that's all, in case they catch you. Because we were told to keep away from the Germans, Italians and the communists, okay? But as a kid you don't realise the importance of, even of life, you know, you don't know, what was it, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 years of age, you know, and 11, even 12, come back at the age of 14. You know, but that time was different, of course. By 14, the war had finished and everything.
But did you feel like Kythera was your home when you went back?
The first thing I wanted to do when I got to the island was to bend down and kiss the land. That was after 30 years. I never. By the way, when we did come back for the first time after the war, I said to my father, "I'm never ever going to leave Australia again." I hated to go to Greece, I hated Greeks, I hated everything. You know what changed my mind in a way? When I was in the Air Force in 1952, one night where all the officers were together and we were sitting next to an Air Commodore from England. He had these big stripes up here. And he said to me, "Comino, you're Greek and your name should be Kominos with an S at the end." He was very well read. And I said, "Oh no sir, I'm Australian, I was born here, I'm not Greek, I'm Australian." And he said, "No my boy, you're Greek, you're going to be proud that you're Greek. For the whole world owes so much to Greece and to the Greek people. The whole world history comes as the Greek history." Wow. And he started telling me stories and he blew me up like anything. And then he turns around and says to the co-pilots and my mates there, "And all you young men, you're going to be honoured to have a Greek fighting on your side."
Wow.
He made me feel so proud, you have no idea. And that changed my mind and my thinking about not having anything to do with Greece. Because I was still young, I was only 18, 19 years old, right? I had those bitter memories, but that soon went away after a while. I started mixing with Greeks and all that, especially when I came to Sydney.
So when you, because you and Matina and the family have gone to Kythera for so many times, right? When you go there, do you feel like it's a second home or a home? How does Kythera feel to you?
That is something extra special that I can't find words for it. I really can't. It brings back all kinds of feelings and memories. I can't describe it really. I feel when I'm leaving, I say, "Will I see you again?"
Oh wow!
You know, I feel like crying.
Yeah.
Will I see you again? You know, will I come here again? And when I land there, every time I go there, I'm so happy to be there. It brings back, can I say, my childhood, and happy memories. I don't think of the bad memories. I try to forget them.
But do you have that sense of belonging there? Like as if, even though
Definitely. Oh, you got here. Well, that was my only schooling, really speaking, if you call it schooling, right? I've hardly had any education in Greek or in English. Hardly any education. What I know is self-taught. And thanks to my good wife, she was my teacher too. She taught me a lot. She helped me a lot. Right? But I was determined. To learn the language of my country. And my Air Force mates helped me a lot when I was young. Don't forget, they helped me a hell of a lot. My roommates.
Can I ask you, Emanuel, how do you look back on your life? Like, you've done so much, how do you look back? Like, how do you, if you had to describe your life looking back on it, what would you say?
At times, not always, but at times I feel I've been honoured 3 times by the Australian government for service to the community, 3 times, not twice or once, but I was very proud of that. And the local 3 councils all had honoured me. And then I say, if I had to do the whole thing all over again, will I do it? And I keep thinking, I say, at times, no, I will not do it. I will not do it ever again, because I deprive a lot of time for my wife and my family. I spend too much time away in meetings and congresses, and I felt very sad that I neglected in a way. I feel that I neglected my sons and my wife at times, when they probably might have needed me more. I don't know, but that's the only thing I'm thinking of. Will I do it again if I had the choice? I will toss the coin.
But the community is very, very fortunate to have people like you. You know that.
Well, that's the community to say, not for me to say. I did it. Anything I did in life, Vasili, I did it because I want to do it. No one forced me to do anything. I was just like that. I asked to do things, I did things, right? They asked me to join things to help them out. I help a lot of people in any way I can. I help them out to the best of my ability. I'm not a billionaire or millionaire or anything like that, but if I can help in any way at all, not just with money, with other things. There's so many things in life you can help people. I'm proud of that. I've done it to the best I can. I still do from time to time. But going back in history and saying, will you do it all over again? You have to give it a damn good thought. Because I keep thinking all the time how many times I neglected my sons and my wife for meetings. And she never once complained, not once. Or my sons, to say, oh, not another meeting again. Once my grandson said that to me, and that made me really cry. Oh, Papu, not another meeting tonight. I had to leave my grandchildren to go to a meeting. And that hurt me. That really hurt me. When your grandson tells you, oh, no, Papu, another meeting.
Emanuel Comino, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure. Anytime.